And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tomorrow morning's flying weather graphic for Wednesday morning showing IFR in over the eastern Gulf of Alaska up to about Yakutat and over the northern 3/4 of the southeast coast. Interior Alaska, VFR down into Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, even the eastern Aleutians, right up the west coast here, Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, into the Chukchi Sea. Areas of marginal VFR for the north coast and Arctic coast and North Slope, and to a lesser extent in the Brooks Range. And then areas of marginal VFR covering most of the Bering Sea and areas of the Aleutians west of Nikolsky. And for the afternoon, that area advances across on Alaska Island to about False Pass there on the Alaska Peninsula up to the Pribilofs and northward to St. Matthew Island, staying well off the southwest coast here. Marginal VFR, North Slope, Arctic coast into the western central Brooks Range, otherwise south of the mountains there, VFR, all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, and improving here for the Panhandle, mostly marginal VFR now, and VFR for Yakutat. Then for the afternoon, continued improvement here for the southeast coast. The IFR now restricted down to the south with increasing VFR as you head north. Solid VFR for interior Alaska. Still looking at marginal VFR for the Arctic coast and North Slope. And not much change out west with the marginal VFR staying well off the coast there, west of Nunivak Island, but covering the Pribilofs, St. Matthew Island to the eastern Aleutians, extreme western Alaska Peninsula westward to the Komodorskis. And then again, Tuesday afternoon, not a lot of change here, maybe retreating back there to west of Unalaska, the marginal VFR zone, but still right on the edge of the Pribilofs up to St. Matthew Island and on out to the west. VFR here, much of interior Alaska, again from the Gulf all the way up to the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR from the North Slope and Arctic coast continue. And then areas of marginal VFR for the Panhandle, some IFR over toward Misty Fjord, Stewart and Hyder in those areas. Passes, Brooks Range, look for occasional marginal VFR for both Anatuvik and Atigan for the day on Wednesday. Lake Clark and Merrill, though, VFR. Rainy, should be VFR. And windy VFR with Isabel VFR, as well as Mentasta, Tanita VFR. And for Portage, VFR, Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels here, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the central and southern southeast coast, off the at the surface here, well off the coast down to the south, back along the Aleutians, and then 2,000 feet there out toward Amchitka and Kiska Island. And for icing, no icing expected over the interior, Bering Sea, or the Aleutians. Down here over the southern Panhandle, that's the best chance of running into any considerable moderate rime icing in that area over the central and southern areas, but icing free up to the north. And for the jet stream here at 33,000 feet, looking at westerly flow across the state from the northern Bering Sea there at about 80 to 85 knots, much lighter for the Panhandle and lighter for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And then for 9,000 feet, about the same pattern, northwest or west-northwest, about 40 knots, becoming more westerly, up to 45 to 50 knots there from the eastern Alaska Range all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. Light for the Panhandle, Kodiak Island, and then easterlies here at about 35 knots, cutting across the central Aleutians. 3,000 feet, westerlies 30 to 45 knots, strongest on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, lightening up and then really becoming light from the Brooks Range southward here, and then otherwise easterlies at 30 knots for the central Aleutians, and for the Panhandle here, 35 knots or so coming in with that low off the south coast. And that will result in some light to isolated moderate turbulence there from about Sitka, Port Alexander or so in that area down across Prince of Wales Island. Also, it could be some light to isolated moderate mechanical turbulence here for the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, Resurrection Bay, and western Prince William Sound. Look for considerable moderate turbulence there for the Arctic coast. And out in the Aleutians, Adak, Atka, back to about Kiska, light to